Hello and welcome back again, folks. I was asked the question, what is an affidavit? Listen very carefully because this is a trick. It's called an affidavit for a reason, and I'll come on to that later. But I'll tell you the broad spectrum, albeit the volition of the Spirit or the Spirit behind the thinking of what it means. An affidavit is you putting onto paper the facts that you know. The facts that you know, not your personal statement. That's got to be very, very clear about it. Not your emotional statement, but the facts as the facts are. Like when you have a car accident. What happened, what you saw, what you did. Or if you're a witness, what you saw and what happened. But no other conclusions. So in an affidavit, you only put down the facts. Full stop. Hopefully you've understood that absolutely, and you've got to get it absolute. Now comes a trick. Since you are putting in an affidavit of truth, say to rebut a letter that's come through your letterbox, well, you've made one big tragic mistake. When you read that letter never told you the language that it was written in. So what you did is you read between the lines, you read into the lines. Reading between the lines is Shakespeare. Reading into the lines is like poetry, and you fell for that trick. In falling for that trick, presuming and assuming the words on there mean what you normally would use in everyday language, just fell apart. And you took that letter and you made an affidavit. And in that affidavit, you essentially have contracted with this fraudulent document that came through your letterbox. Whether it's a debt collecting agency, whether it's a government report, whether it's a statement from your MP, whether it's from the Senate, you contracted with that letter under presumption and assumption. And when you put in affidavit of a fact, you have now just firmly contracted yourself, even more firmly contracted yourself with that fraudulent piece of document. If it was an affidavit of you making a statement on a claim, well, that's entirely different. But when you're using it to rebut letters or using it against governments and things like that, ain't going to work because they never told you. They never told you they were not speaking English. They never told you they're not speaking Arabic. They never told you they're not speaking this language or that language. In fact, they never told you what language that they're speaking in. You know what I mean. Now, when you do an affidavit, as it were, it has to be accompanied with what's known as a jurist. What that means is that you now take your affidavit and you have it witnessed by, say, a public notary, to say that you're saying the facts and the facts are what the facts are. And now he stamps it or rubber stamps it, and what you have now done is triple contracted yourself with the original letter that you're trying to rebut, rather than just simply saying, hey, I don't quite understand what language you're speaking in. Sounds like some of the words I use. Are the words that you're using exactly what they mean as I would understand them? Why don't you come forward and now tell me what it is? And they have to do this, both parties, under the penalty of perjury. The penalty of perjury is where your ticket out of it is that any time this happened, that you contracted with a fraudulent conveyance of language, a fraudulent letter, you have the ability to ask for, under the penalty of perjury, why don't you give me your affidavit of facts, not truth, of the facts. And that's what we, postal court judges, do. As I am a chief federal postal court judge, I adjudicate on anything that is written on paper, going back as far as back history, right up to now. And I only deal with the language, because it's all about the language, folks. Hopefully, you've understood what I have said. Words have meanings. The meanings of those words mean very different when it comes from a government, when it comes from a court, when it comes from an agency or a corporation. They have their own dictionaries. Hopefully you've understood what a jurist is, you've hopefully understood what an affidavit is, and you've hopefully understood the tragedy and the game that is being played again and again upon the innocent victims. Here's a little tool that you have to use. Anybody that makes an omission, knowingly makes an omission from a contract, that means they haven't told you something that they should have told you, have violated contract law. It's null and void right there and then. That's why when you buy your cars and motorbikes, it always says sold as seen. That means I know there might be something wrong with it, or there might not be something wrong with it, but if there was something wrong with it, I'm not liable because it's sold as seen. Do you really want to walk yourself into that contract when it comes to mortgages, debt collecting agencies, credit cards, banks, governments, corporations, voting, prime ministers, president, or fiction entities, or people speaking nonsense, doing nonsense? The world of fiction, ladies and gentlemen, came to an end when David Wayne Miller broke the code. What you are witnessing at this moment in your world is nothing more than the death throes of the non-starter. And that's what these things are, these corporate entities, these people that play these games. They are non-starters. They cannot produce their own sweat equity. They cannot produce their own creative energy. They got nothing. So don't go trespassing. Don't go contracting with a piece of paper that says nothing. Thank you very much for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you another time. Bye-bye now.